Let's talk a little bit about the element of design, size. Size can attract, organize, and function. Humans are attracted to the very big or the very small. They're attracted to huge bridges and buildings, they always invoke awe, or tiny babies and perfect flowers. We look for and create organization. We line up our children shortest to tallest for school pictures, and we always have them line up in lines. We base decisions on justified reasoning, like we're going to buy a car that fits the size of our family. That's the way it would function. When you're designing a piece, size plays a very important role in making a layout functional, attractive, and organized. Size of the total piece is a huge consideration for obvious reasons. Size can be used to attract your audience by contrasting smaller objects with larger objects. And another thing that size is used for is for organizing your overall design. For instance, headers in a book are usually larger than the text of the body. Size is often synonymous with scale, but there is a distinct difference between the two. Size is the physical dimensions of an element in the layout, a 6 by 6 inch image, for instance, and scale is the size of the element as it relates to its usual physical size. Like it's impossible to get a full-size human head on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, so you'd have to scale down the head to fit on the 8.5 by 11 paper. Size is relative to the layout. Think about a 12-point font in a magazine versus a 12-point font on a billboard. It's the exact same size, but in relationship to the layout, it can seem just right or entirely too small. You have to consider the size of the piece itself and then ask yourself, will its use limit its size? Like, does this need to fit in a number 10 envelope? Or is the attractiveness more important? Should it come first? Attractiveness? Should it be oversized so that it catches the eye when it's received? Or does it need to have some sort of functional limitation that I need to consider first? To make a layout functional, select type sizes and images that are easy for the intended viewer to see and read from the intended viewing distance. Take, for example, a brochure for a retirement home that's targeted at potential residents. For this, you would want to make sure to use a type size that's large enough for an older person to read. You want to use a size that's going to attract by contrasting large and small elements, or take a photo of a very small object and blow it up so it bleeds off the page. When something bleeds off the page, it extends beyond the trimmed edge of that particular page. To help organize the layout, make the first thing that you want the viewer to see the largest and the least important element the smallest. Headlines are usually larger than the text, and that allows the user to look at those first and then move on to the text. Larger objects appear closer than smaller ones, so you can reinforce importance by using size to create artificial spatial relationships. With size, you can show which element is the most important by making it the biggest. You can make elements come forward or recede on the page. Larger ones tend to come forward, smaller ones recede. You can give the reader a sense of scale. In a photo of a shoe, and then use another object for comparison of size. You can make all elements easy to see. Use bigger type in pictures on a poster that will hang from a wall than one that's going to be seen from farther off. Get the piece noticed. If you're going to do a mailing, mail it in an envelope that's larger or smaller than the standard business letter size, number 10, and it's going to attract more attention. You'll notice that most of the mail that you get comes in the standard number 10 envelope, so whenever you make something in a different size, it stands out. Contrast two elements to add interest. Put a large photo besides a tiny little line to type, or vice versa. Break up space in an interesting way. You could also make elements fit together properly in the piece. Set type in a small size to make room for more pictures, for instance. And you can establish a consistent look throughout a brochure or newsletter by making all the heads the same size. Size and scale are used to create depth, create perspective, create hierarchy and organize, and create interest and variety. You want to make sure that you use scale wisely. Look at how scale is making your layout more interesting. Add an object or an image that is magnified maybe 3 times to create an abstract background. Shrink the image smaller and duplicate it to create a texture or a patterned background. Would a single large dramatic image or 6 smallish images that don't show much detail be more effective? Consider each. Add to or skew the viewer's perspective with the use of scale. And then, of course, be mindful of possible poor uses of scale. If you size an object, it can overwhelm the layout, so be careful of that. Everything is the same size, that's super boring and possibly confusing because there's no hierarchy in the layout. And of course, once you know the rules, you can purposely break them to create a desired mood or an effect. Let's take a look at some examples. The first one is for Olay skin product, and here you see the large section. It's in your face picture of the snake skin. It visually attracts the viewers. The oversized excerpt of the snake skin that bleeds off the page surprises the eye and then leads down to the logo and the tagline in the lower right hand corner. Many people think that emphasizing the most important element, the logo, is the way to go, but most of the time that's not really the most effective use. As you can see here, the large image makes the piece stand out in its environment, and then contrast helps to grab attention and lead the user to the logo and the tagline. The tagline, which says "Hide your age," is cleverly reinforced by the number 40 in the snake skin. A play on words is made by combining this with the visual. The next example is for Surefire flashlights, and in this ad, size is used in many ways. The huge spotlight takes prominence in the form. It shines on a tiny little image, and the image is dwarfed. It makes the viewer feel the hugeness of the white circle. Contrast is working really well here. When you look closely, you'll see that the small speck is revealed to be a giraffe, which is a pretty large animal in itself. And here it's displayed tiny, further reinforcing the play on size and just how big and powerful the flashlight's light is. The tagline states the extra wide radius, and this is set in an extra wide font. The ad is simple, but everything works together to deliver the message. Great use of sizing here. We're going to look at another Still Power Tools ad. I just think that they have such unique advertising and they're very successful. Here you can see that size is working well with space and simplicity. The oversized and predominant pieces of material take center stage. Well, they're actually kind of off to the left, but centrally the viewer is drawn to the large forms, which is offset by lots of white space. And then the ad successfully creates depth with the reflections. In the upper right hand corner of each of the ads is the actual power tool that's used on that particular sort of material, and just a tiny little bit of the power tool is shown. This adds interest as well, and having the tool kind of bleed off the page is very effective. It creates an asymmetrical, unbalanced layout that utilizes tension to grab and focus your attention. The logo stands out really well, even though it's fairly small compared to the other elements, and it basically stands out because of its contrast in size to the large piece of material, and also its color and its placement. And you can see that it's surrounded in each ad by plenty of white space. Simplicity is the star here, and really, there doesn't need to be anything else. The last example is for Kaiser Permanente, and this is part of the Thrive series. This ad uses size well, and it creates interest by contrasting sizes. The upper photo of the baseball has been enlarged and cropped so it looks larger than life, and it's contrasted with the smaller photo of the bat and the kind of like fan, hand fingerboard with the little message. The proportions on this piece are very attractive. The big visual and plenty of white space make the ad have lots of impact. The big photo, the baseball, occupies roughly a third of the format, and it's balanced by the other elements that take up the other 2/3 of the ad. The underlying theme of sports and health are supported by the designer's choice of images and the text concept that's used on this ad. Hopefully you have a little bit more information on size, and you'll start to think about that as you incorporate it into your artwork and designs.